Same ritual every time I start this. I need to check whether my phone is running and in the airplane mode, so nobody can call me. Good day. My name is Martin Schweiger, and I'm a patent attorney and powerlifter in Singapore. And I take you with me on my daily walk, and I update you about my journey for recovery from metabolic syndrome, which was diagnosed 1.5 years ago, or more, 20 months ago, after being immobile for 4 months due to a surgery in my left leg because of an accident. I believe that's in very short words what has happened. So I found that this low intensity walking is very good for my body. I do that daily I'm aiming at 12,000 steps. I'm aiming at 7,000 steps, but then 7,000 is close to nothing. It's a lazy day. So 10,000 is more realistic, and average is 12,000, so I do sometimes 15,000, sometimes also 25, or even I never made 30,000 steps in one day yet, but that will change. It would be a very nice goal for a holiday. There's 300,000 steps in 2 weeks. That's about 200 kilometers. That would be a nice walk from my hometown in Bavaria down to Italy. And then do all the blood tests along the way. Yeah, and as you can imagine, I'm more an explorer, and I always try to find out new ways of improving. And I found several videos on YouTube that I need to share with you. I believe I did quite some time ago, some 50 or 100 episodes ago, I recorded a video about whom to listen to and whom not. And actually, it's quite easy to find people to whom you want to listen. There are, if I'm right, 4 categories, I would put them. And each one of the category has its own right to be listened to. It's a bit like, I'm an AI expert, and at the current state of the art, AIs are very specialized, and then they can be very good. And the same applies to experts when it is about health. And you would find the same reflected in the German system. We have a general practitioner, GP. It's about does about everything. And then there are specialists, they specialize on certain organs or even diseases. Yeah, I learned the difference. There's no, as far as I know, no specialized doctor for health. Well, there should be one. But there's a general practitioner. He's the guy who sits in his clinic. Okay, I call it English clinic and German clinic. They sound similar, but they are not. They have a very different meaning. A clinic in English, in the context of Singapore, is what we call, in German would call a Arztpraxis. It's a room or 3 rooms for 3 doctors, and then all the examination and the treatments that can be done are done there. A German clinic is something like a hospital in English. Yeah. So a general practitioner is a guy who sits in a clinic and waits for patients, and the patients would come. And guess what? I believe that 80% of those suffer from what falls under metabolic syndrome. But as a doctor recently explained to me, metabolic syndrome is not an illness, because she said more than 50% of the population has metabolic syndrome. So it's not considered an illness, it's a state, which I find quite pitiful, because there should be, I believe there should be health doctors who look into keeping the population healthy. And if they have realized that 50% have metabolic syndrome, then there should be someone who makes sure that this number goes down to 30%. The Singapore government, funny enough, somehow does this, because they issue free fitness watches to the population. I also got one, but I lost it. But anyway, that fitness watch got me walking for 9 months, and that changed my life, because I found out that the Singapore government, by rewarding me for doing 5,000 steps a day, paid me $20 at the end of the month. And yeah, I don't need the $20, but having the $20 is better than not having them. So I qualified for the $20. And that kept me going for the first 9 months of my journey. 2024, the first 9 months, until September. And now, back to the 4 types of people that I believe you should listen to. Let's group them first according to their profession. And in the second step, what they say, which is more critical. And I'm not really interested in what they say, but I'm more interested in the way they see the human body. And there's a distinct difference. So the first group that I believe you should listen to are scientist doctors. They believe in measurements. They believe in data. They believe in, you name it. And there are differences between those. But what is a good sign is that they don't close their eyes when they're confronted with certain data, and they rather ask two questions than none. I give you a few examples that come to my mind. There is first this, I believe, Dr. Robert Lustig. Yeah. And when I think back, there's also Dr. Ford Brewer, remarkable on its own. So, nice neighborhood here. I never went into the industrial estate here. These are all factories, left and right, and shops. Interesting. I've just named two of those. There are more. I know there's one guy. He's a physicist and he works as a medical doctor in a... I've recorded your number. I report you to the police for honking at me. So, he's a physicist and works as a doctor. He's doing X-rays and radiation therapy and analysis. Very smart guy. The University of Schweinfurt or Bayreuth or something, or hospital. Anyway, so you would immediately discover those scientists because the way they talk and they argue is really like a scientist. Then the second ones are those health practitioners who are not working as medical doctors, but they have some background in medicine. But they are not scientifically working doctors. I would say most of them are somehow chiropractics or osteopaths. These people mainly treat patients who have symptoms that you can either improve by pharmaceuticals or by some physical therapy, which is you apply body power or warmth or coolness or I don't know, you name it, something to the human body, and they see. They also can, actually everyone can do, they can influence the intake of the patient, which means what they eat. And the longer I do this, the more I realize that what the people eat has the biggest influence on everything. And the older we get, the more severe it becomes. So I believe for treating people according, to have a healthier life, you don't need pharmaceuticals most of the time. But of course, if you have pharmaceuticals, then sometimes it's easier. Or maybe sometimes you cannot even treat someone without having pharmaceuticals, or even worse, surgery. Right? So what I understood is, if you have a tumor and you want to get rid of the negative impact of the tumor because it's pressing on some nerve or so, the best way is to cut it away, if you can do that safely without damaging the other parts of the body. And then start from there, because it would give you a head start with the treatment. That also comes to the other second criteria of what you should listen to. It's how they see the body. And when you have a tumor in one part of the body, you can be very sure that there are other tumors in other parts of the body, but they're maybe just so small that you don't see them. But now back to our group. So we have the scientists, then we have the medical practitioners with insight. Then you have informed patients without a medical degree. And they specialize in one specific item. Like the one that comes to my mind is, I believe, a Czech or a Hungarian. And he is an expert in blood glucose measurement. He is a diabetes 1 patient, means that his pancreas failed at a very early age, and then he's now in his 30s or 40s. He lives with that by injecting insulin. I've met only 2 such people in my life, knowingly, and so he's an expert in measurement of blood glucose, which I believe this is essential. If you don't have your blood glucose in order, then you cannot get healed from metabolic syndrome. The one goes together with the other. And I believe you cannot live without a continuous blood glucose meter. Even I'm wearing one here, as you can see. Wait. I'm wearing one here. See the button on my arm? And it's not very accurate, but it gives me an idea of where I am. So I don't really monitor closely what the actual blood glucose value is, but it gives a warning when I eat something. Then I will get a spike in that measurement, and that spike will tell me that something is wrong with my food intake, and then I find out what it is, and then I try to stay away in the future. And yeah, there are better continuous blood glucose meters and worse ones. I have now worn 4 different ones, and I must say I'm not happy with either one. So a lot to improve here. Then, so those individuals who specialize in measurement method, or maybe in any method, they are really worth being listened to. I'm just thinking, whenever I tell you this, I'm thinking, what am I worth listening to for? I believe I'm in the 4th group. I'm a patient who has metabolic syndrome, and I healed myself from that. And I also have more insights from my engineering background. I'm a patent attorney. I'm an athlete, so I'm using my body more than carrying my brain around. And I'm aging. And as I can tell you, when I go through my old photo albums, the people around me start to die. So just the fact that I'm surviving says something. And yesterday I met someone. He says that he is a personal trainer for 30 years, and of those 30 years he is 17 years, almost 18 years in ketonic mode. And that jumped at me because I myself, I'm in ketonic mode, but not for 17 years, but for 1.5 years. But from listening to this guy, he did an invitation video for one of his courses. I found out, I confirmed my own experience, namely that switching between ketonic mode and glucosis, which means eating carbohydrates, doesn't make sense at all. I mean, he says that he's now so flexible in his metabolism that he can switch from one mode to the other in no time. And of course would he eat carbohydrates when there is an opportunity, but he wouldn't overeat in carbohydrates when they're there, nor would he put carbohydrates as a part of his regular part of his food. When you ask him what he eats, he would say fat, protein, that's it. Not really true, because he also eats fiber, means vegetables. And he recommended to eat less than 20 grams carbohydrates per day. It's not a lot, but okay to me. Currently I'm more aiming at 3 grams carbohydrates. I'm in the 100 days no alcohol, no carbohydrates mode. And I'm now in day 21. And before that I had the same for 6 weeks, interrupted by 1 week of having a so-called, in quotation marks, normal life. No more normal life for me. After what I've seen yesterday, I believe for the rest of my life, no carbohydrate. So I believe it was so loud. In very short word, these are the 4 groups, and I don't know what to add. I believe that's mainly the groups you should listen to. I give you a few examples of people that I don't like to listen to very often when they have promoting their own agenda, and then they say that they don't say it like that, but you can hear there's one way of doing things and that's the only way of doing it. Or they say they diminish the other groups that I told you. They say I'm how to say, sourcing my authority from my education, or position, and they don't listen. Very often these people live in a bubble. And this bubble is in a self-reinforcement mode, in a feedback loop. Very often also these people, they are quite comfortable with people being sick because they derive an income from it. And the basic thinking is so difficult to help these people because, number one, they need to help themselves, and I'm here for realizing that. So number two, how much money would I make from that as compared with just treating the symptoms? And again, I come back to the other. So metabolic syndrome is not an illness. It's an overall state of a body. As an engineer, I call it is a reaction of the body to driving your body into outside of the specifications it was made for. There's for every technical device, there is a range of parameters where you're supposed to run it in. So like say from a temperature, lowest temperature to a highest temperature, the input voltage must be above a certain threshold, but cannot be too high as well, and so on. And these allowed ranges define a space that we engineers call the operational specifications, ranges. So if you drive your body outside of that specification, the body would react according to what it is wired up. And it now more and more becomes clear that our DNA is a collection of routines, like a software package, and many of the routines are switched off by a process that is called methylation. But when you run the body outside of its specifications, then the body would react by trying out things in an innovative way. And that would include switching on and off certain subroutines. And that also explains why some people develop one disease, let's say high blood pressure, while others, if they're out of the specifications, would get cancer. So all this together explains also the second criteria. For the people you should listen to. Are they seeing the body as a complicated system? And when they see that the body developed a symptom that is called then illness, would they look at the entire system, or would they just look at the symptom? And that's quite telling, because the people who look at the system would not only make sure that they treat the illness, but they will also make sure that the entire body goes back into the specifications in this safe operational area. I'll give you an example from my own experience as a very early motorbike mechanic. Early in my life. I'm a trained motorbike mechanic. So there was a customer who always had these black fumes coming out from the exhaust of his motorbike. No, motorbike, small motorbike, two-stroke engine. That's important here. So he came, and then one of my dumber colleagues took out the spark plug, found out that the spark plug was oily and black, showed this spark plug to the customer. Hey, this is black, we need to replace it for a new one. He's screwed in the new one, and as you can imagine, no more black fumes coming out from the exhaust. That went on for 3 times over several months, and then the customer said, okay, sell me a few of the spark plugs. I do that myself. Off he went. Then I asked our master mechanic what has happened, and he said, Martin, I said nothing because the customer is happy, but what should have been done is to investigate why is the spark plug oily. And if the mechanic would have investigated, he would have found out that this customer is not buying his petrol with a pre-mixed oil, and at the time the two-stroke engines were like that. You had to put in a mix of oil and petrol, and you could buy it already pre-mixed at the petrol station. But he did it at home, which you can. You buy your oil, but he never measured the amount of oil, and he always thought that more is better than less, safer for the engine. He just put too much of this oil, and the whole thing could have been removed by fixing the intake for free. I hope that you understand the analogy to the human body. So, when I was diagnosed with diabetes 2, the doctor wanted to put me on a medication, which is insulin that would drive the blood sugar into the cells. And the idea was, you have insulin resistance, so the body needs more insulin to lower the insulin in the blood glucose in the blood. And it would work. The blood glucose would come down. But wrong measure. What I did is I put on a continuous blood glucose meter and I started walking. And now guess what? Within less than 3 weeks, my blood glucose was in a normal range. And here's what I say. I don't say when you have a high blood glucose that the continuous blood glucose meter would help you to reduce it. But what I said, I described my conditions and what I did. I didn't walk, and I ate carbohydrates, and that led to high blood glucose. So if it works for me under those conditions, it may also work for you. And I developed a sense for seeing the human body as a system, which is the second criteria. So, and at the same time, all my other symptoms became less, namely the thyroid problems. I even took drugs for that from the doctor. I also took vitamin D that brought up my vitamin D level and improved my overall condition. So yes, you need some supplements if the body doesn't produce that. And one of those is vitamin D. I mean, I'm walking in the sun daily.
உங்க நம்பரை கொடுக்கவா? சரிங்க.
and I don't produce enough vitamin D. So I found out that by taking those vitamin D supplements, my vitamin D goes up, and so did my health. And there's an article series on my website about my vitamin D journey, and it would tell you more. I saw something new, Strength Masters. Sounds like a fitness gym. I'll have a look at that and I take you with me. First time I see this one. A holistic approach to personal training, it says. Okay. Oh, that looks more like bodybuilding. Lots of supplements they sell. So I believe you have now a very good idea of the different people in the fitness and health environment. And I've reached 42 minutes, and I've also reached the place where I want to run my errand. This is really, when I look at it, those places, they sell beer, and I have the idea that I cannot drink beer anymore in my life. I mean, on a regular basis. And also no more pretzels on a regular basis. I find it a bit depressing. Yeah. Maybe that's also the reason why people don't follow such a strict program, because it's so much more convenient to just continue and listen to the doctors and take drugs and give in to. But I can tell you that would lead to early death. 20 years missing in the end. And we don't want that, right? Okay, good enough for today. See you next time.